Hi, everyone. This is Global Podcast, your window to the world. Breaking news, big ideas, your global hangout for what's happening now, and bold conversations. Wherever you are, we're bringing it to you. Let's get started.
Welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going all the way up north to the Arctic. A region that's been making headlines lately.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of activity up there.
A lot of activity, and not all of it's, peaceful or scientific research or, that kind of thing. We've got some sources here that really highlight the concerns from Denmark and the United States about all this growing Russian presence, militarily, their ambitions, all that.
Yeah.
So I guess our mission today is to really try to unpack this a bit, understand the different perspectives, what the key concerns are, figure out what's really driving all this tension.
Yeah, and I think the sources you sent over are a really great starting point because we get perspectives from the highest levels of government in Denmark and the U.S.
Exactly.
We have Prime Minister Frederiksen of Denmark really pushing for, more U.S. defense in Greenland because of this perceived threat from Russia. And then on the other side, we have Putin accusing the U.S. of basically escalating the situation and sort of revealing Russia's own plans for, this Arctic military buildup.
Yeah, and then you throw in U.S. Vice President Vance, right, criticizing Denmark for not investing enough in Greenland's security.
Yeah, it's a fascinating triangle.
It is. It's really fascinating. And the Danish foreign minister pushes back a little bit, defending their commitments. So.
Exactly. So we have a lot to dig into.
It's going to be a good one. Let's start with Denmark. Prime Minister Frederiksen, she's been pretty upfront about all this. What exactly is she saying about Greenland?
Well, it's interesting because her central argument is that Russia poses a very real and growing threat in the Arctic.
Okay.
And Greenland, because of its strategic location, within NATO, it's really crucial for their security.
Right.
So she's basically calling on the United States to step up their game in terms of defense efforts. She's talking about, enhanced surveillance capabilities, having a stronger military presence there, really making sure that the region is secure.
So basically, from Denmark's point of view, they're saying, hey, U.S., we need you to have our backs here.
Exactly. They want stronger security guarantees from Washington.
Gotcha. Now, let's flip the script a little bit.
Yeah.
How's Russia looking at all this?
Well, it's not surprising that Putin has a very different take on things. He's basically saying that all these U.S. actions, and even, past comments from U.S. officials about maybe acquiring Greenland, he sees those as aggressive moves that show American ambitions in the region.
Okay.
So in his view, it's the U.S. that's escalating the situation.
And it's not just talk, right? I mean, our sources suggest that Russia's actually taking some pretty concrete steps.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Putin's been crystal clear that Russia's going to significantly build up its military in the Arctic.
Okay.
So we're talking about a major expansion of their nuclear-powered icebreaker fleet, increased troop deployments, and just a general strengthening of their military infrastructure throughout the Arctic. The northern sea route is becoming increasingly important.
Right.
And it seems like that's a major factor driving all this.
Okay. Now, this is where things get even more interesting, I think, because the U.S. perspective with Vice President Vance, he's not exactly jumping on board with this whole, let's give Denmark more support thing.
Right.
It's almost like he's saying, hold on, is Denmark even pulling their own weight here?
Yeah, that's a key distinction.
Yeah.
He's questioning whether Denmark's current level of investment in Greenland's security is actually enough.
Right.
It suggests that maybe he thinks Denmark isn't doing enough to deal with these challenges, and that maybe the U.S. needs to take more of a leadership role to counter both Russia and China in the Arctic.
So it's not necessarily about sending in troops or anything right away, but more about making sure that the infrastructure, the security infrastructure is there.
Yeah, more about investment. And, it's interesting to think about what this means for NATO.
Right.
Because this kind of public criticism, could that create some friction within the alliance?
It's a good question. And Denmark didn't just sit there and take it, did they?
No, not at all. The Danish foreign minister came out and defended their government's commitment to Arctic security.
Okay.
Highlighted all the investments they're already making. So you can really see the different perspectives within NATO.
Right.
About how serious the threat is.
Right.
And how much each country should be spending on defense.
Okay. So just to make sure we're all on the same page here, the key takeaway is that Denmark is asking for more U.S. support in Greenland.
Right.
Because they're worried about Russia. Russia sees all this as the U.S. being aggressive, and they're ramping up their own military presence.
Yeah.
And the U.S. is kind of looking at Denmark sideways saying, are you sure you're doing enough?
Exactly. And I think this whole situation highlights just how competitive the Arctic is becoming. It's like every move one country makes is seen as a threat by the others.
Right.
And then they react, and it just creates this cycle of tension. And we can't forget about climate change and the fact that the Arctic is becoming more accessible,
Right.
which means there's more potential for resource exploitation, new shipping routes,
Yeah.
It's like all these factors are feeding into these geopolitical moves.
It's a very complex situation. And I think the big question is, with all these different viewpoints, all these military buildups, what's the long-term impact going to be on the Arctic?
Right.
How is this going to affect international cooperation? How are we going to manage resources in this region that's becoming increasingly important? It makes you wonder if we're heading towards more conflict or if there's still room for cooperation.
Yeah.
And what will this new Arctic order even look like?
Definitely something to think about.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. It was a good one. We'll see you next time.
Sounds good.